Contrary to public opinion, my demise is uh, not imminent, at least not today. We all face our expiration date at some point, but not now. Uh, I apologize. I completely overslept today. I overslept today. And part of it was because my alarm did not go off at the time that it was supposed to go off. So plus we moved ahead an hour. So normally I would have gotten up at 7:30, which meant I would have been here on time. Unfortunately, no excuses. Anyway, how is everybody? Thank you for your patience. Let me get a sip of coffee in here before I put on my Astro Weatherman suit. Weather-wise here, it is overcast and gray, so it's not like the rays of the sun are blasting through and making themselves known with great fanfare and importance. So really, what I'm doing right now, to give you a kind of a professional understanding, is I'm buying some time so that my molecules, my atoms, begin to respond here. Um, and I can give you a reasonable rundown of the weather. So this is really cool. Let me start with this. I'm gonna do this. This is a very interesting icebreaker in a lot of ways. So let me see if I can find this thing. This is when you know astrology has some merit. And I've been doing this long enough to know that it has some merit. Let's do this. So yesterday I was talking about Venus and Pisces. Back here, hold on. I was talking about Venus and Pisces, and do this. There we go. And I was talking about Venus on the clamshell, right? How Venus or Aphrodite merges from the ocean on this clamshell, which apparently has some biological connection to our body, as a lot of art does. It's really kind of a representation of other things, right? Let me see if I can. Oh God, now I've got, what is this JPEG? Oh, good. It's a JPEG. Let me throw this up here so you guys can check it out. One sec. I hope everybody is doing well wherever you are. And again, I apologize for my rather elongated delay. All right, check this out. This is okay. So I was talking about Venus on the clamshell, and this actually happened at Mar-a-Lago, and they posted the picture the same day that I talked about Venus on the clamshell. So apparently, they had some kind of a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, and Pisces and Poseidon was a theme because it was like three characters that were staging this pageantry, and Poseidon was on the other side of this. He had staff and everything tried, but I thought that this was interesting. Mermaids and a merman. Well, the merman was kind of Poseidon at poolside at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. So that was from March 11th. And as astrologers, we always look for hits, right? Like, oh, look at this, I got a hit. So yesterday, for whatever reason, well, I know the reason because it was a part of the aspect. Um, I talked about this Venus on the clamshell, and there you go, straight from Mar-Lago, Venus on the clamshell. About that. All right, so let's get the weather up here. And by the way, thanks for your concern. I know it's weird, right? It's like because you never know. You just never fucking know. It's like, oh my god, what happened to the? I've had that with clients sometimes, and it's like, oh man, are they okay? Hope they're okay. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. All right, let me zoom in just a little, and there's our aforementioned Venus on the clamshell. Uh, yesterday was, yeah, kind of in that singleton territory, so it really stood out. And of course, yes, at Mar-Lago, it clearly stood out, right? And there, so it's really funny. Of course, people that are sort of inside the symbolism world uh, were saying something to the effect of a weird ritual was taking place poolside at Mar-Lago. It wasn't a ritual. It was just like people playing characters. That's all. That's all. What was happening? It wasn't like they had some, you know, crazy pagan ritual. Although some people, if you were really a hardcore religious person, would view it that way. But they were just in costume, and they were just confirming the astrology. Well, Venus now is at the 2 degrees right here, and the moon is in Taurus. That's probably why I slept. Can I blame it on the moon? I'll just blame it on the moon because, well, it took so long for me to get it together. By the way, 15 minutes. The link is in the chat. Hopefully, it is in the show notes, and it will be happening at 9:41. 9:41, and we'll be going for an hour today on 15 minutes. Just a just a show note here. Okay, so we have a Venus moon sextile, and that moon is in, of course, lazy Taurus. I'll blame that for my nocturnal um my I was going to say nocturnal extension, but that might bring up other images. So we have this Venus moon sextile, and today's one of those days where you may not want to do a lot. I'm just saying, you may not want to do a lot. It's not necessarily bad. It's not like a malaise. It's not like any kind of uh, boredom or ennui sort of sitting in. But the energy today is very relaxed, as you can see, very relaxed and I would say casual to a large extent. And you know, the individual thinks of home, right? Home and comfort and staying in. So if you decided to stay home today, good for you because it's a good day to do it. And I feel like that there's a kind of a cocoon energy around today, even though we have the omnipresent Mars Uranus square, which seems to be going on forever and creating a lot of fractious conflict. That's happening, that's taking place. But there are alternate routes if you want to take them. So the Venus moon sextile would be, hey, if you want to time out, tap out today, if you want to just kind of move at your own pace. Hello. If you want to move at your own pace and stop and smell the roses. Today is a stop and smell the roses day. You have the moon in exaltation, you have Venus in exaltation, and those two together, when you stir them up and mix them together, it's a very gentle, um, kind of deeply appreciative, aesthetic yet tactile kind of energy. And look, if you have the ability to do that with another person, that's even better because, of course, Venus doesn't like to be alone. Venus needs attention. So this is one of those days. Maybe you can do half a day or something like that. And I'm serious about that, right? I'm serious about it because um, today's one of those days where you want to take advantage of that. And even unplugging, I think, from the internet would probably be not a bad thing with this nice Venus Moon sextile. As long as you stay out of the rage of the Mars Uranus square, and apparently we're still going through major cyber attacks. Apparently, Russia was hit with cyber attacks yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. And they also had a refinery blow up. We're at war here, and this is an unfortunate byproduct of just the insanity of here's how this thing works. The people, the representation are for the most part a byproduct of what's happened with us. And I'm not saying that they are a byproduct of the like an immediate manifestation because I'm a believer that the other guy won during the last election. Um, but it's almost like we're in this kind of alternate time wave, right? Where certain things have occurred, certain events have occurred, certain um, what would we call them? Black magic tricks have taken place, and there has been an abdication within people's lives of standing for things like truth and um, love of God, love of country. I mean, all those things that are very, very important. Love of family. Those things hold and bind everything together. And a lot of people are getting there now, right? But it's almost like we're playing catch up in some ways because the momentum of this other thing has been rolling for such a long period of time that it's like this snowball rolling downhill. And on the show yesterday on 15 Minutes, I talked about how we've been a part of a coup, uh, and we have, right? So there are a lot of people who are really waking up and understanding kind of you know where we are and to some degree to the best of their ability what needs to take place, but there's been so much momentum and force from these social changes that have been heaped upon us while we were inundated with things like crisis, whether it's the beginning of 2000 with 9/11 and all the way up to COVID. It keeps people reeling and on their toes, or on their heels rather, when it comes to dealing with so-called reality, right? So we're dealing with kind of a, a, a time lapse or a lag time, right? Because if it were true that our current reality would reflect, I believe, a kind of a burgeoning awakening of our consciousness, we'd have different leadership. The global political chessboard would look differently. The pieces would be in different places, but we have this lag time, and we see things that are happening, like Victoria Nuland no longer being in charge of Ukraine. No, and no proof of life. She really didn't give a press conference or anything like that. So yes, yes, our current situation is a reflection in some ways of our consciousness. And in other ways, it's not because there are a lot of people who like to snap their fingers and end this shit right now, right? We know this, but we're dealing with this lag time and all this momentum of the train that's being piloted by the social engineers. So that's why we have, this Mars Uranus square happening, because in as much as it's fractious and combative, it breaks up patterns. And we have a really interesting combination here of breaking up patterns and reconciliation. Break up the pattern of reconciliation, break up the pattern of reconciliation. The Venus Moon sextile, although brief today, is a wonderful reconciliation aspect. People are seeking peaceful relations, harmonious relations. And again, I can't stress enough that what they've done to us is an absolute crime of the century. Absolute crime of the century. Even though the century is only 20 years old, and they have a really big event from 9/11 that it's competing against, but I think at this point it's winning because of the downstream effect of what's happened politically. So this isn't all bad though, right? Because people are waking up. They're kind of breaking the trance. You can see it. They're breaking the trance. I watched this video of this young gal who's been criticized for being like wholesome and liking to hunt and building a barn and shit like that, right? And somebody on TikTok who's an influencer played this video, and this girl was just really completely unfazed. She was like, y'all do what you need to do. I'm just out here. I'm just living my life and loving my life, right? And that's what I'm talking about with this Mars Uranus square. Breaking people's patterns, breaking circuitry. It's breaking circuitry, and breaking programs and bad programs. And they're out there. They're also, of course, inside of us. But there's help on the way here today. And it says Venus Moon sextile, also quite good for investments. So if you're looking to hedge your investments, even though it's kind of crazy out there with rumors of massive stock sell-offs by people like Jamie Dimon and Jeff Bezos and all these other um, titans of industry, there are still ways to protect your money. And apparently, uh, crypto is going through the ceiling, which is a good thing, and that's a good thing because when there's an up, there's a down, right? But again, and with the moon, in Taurus, these are more hard assets than soft assets. So if you're in a position to purchase something real estate wise, today's a really good day. Today's an excellent day. It's an excellent day to improve your home as well. If you were looking into whatever, starting a garden, if you're looking into solar, if you're looking into some kind of more sophisticated water capture, if you're looking into even adding a well to your property, today is a really good day for that. So don't sleep. I mean, it's a kind of a sleepy day because I almost slept on the show, which actually I did. But there's opportunity, and it's easy opportunity. This is easy. So allow your emotions in a solid way to guide you, not in a kind of a frivolous, um, over emotional. It's just let them guide you. What not about what feels good, but what feels right. Because the moon is really in a lot of ways our somatic navigation representation in our bodies. So you want to move it towards what feels right or what feels organic, right? The moon in Taurus is very analog, and Venus wants to have a relationship and a connection with those feelings and experiences. Um, Saturn is also, in a lot of ways, reflecting that. It's still in that nice trine with Jupiter and Saturn. And again, when we get into Taurus, we get into investment. And I think Saturn in Pisces is spiritual investment. And, one of the things, because with Pisces, everything is, everything is out there, right? It's all kind of on the table there. And there's at times no boundaries, no borders. It's just how Pisces rolls, right? But Saturn in Pisces defines those borders, which we haven't really talked a lot about, but it defines those borders. And Saturn in Pisces is, in some ways, has a lot to do with sacrifice and denial. And when I say denial, I'm not using denial in the sense of like you're in denial of your own actions or your own um, sort of unexamined thoughts or emotions. Denial in the sense that you're going to deny yourself something, like you're going to say, no, I'm not going to have that in my life, right? There's a sacrifice involved with Saturn and Pisces. And these sacrifices on a spiritual level can be very important. So, for instance, if you drink every now and then, and of course we're in Lent, and so Saturn in Pisces is I think a very powerful aspect for Lent. You deny yourself, let's say, alcohol or a drink or a cocktail, or if you're somebody who is an inveterate sweet tooth and you like cakes and cookies and things like that, Saturn in Pisces is really good for saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make a sacrifice of the thing that keeps me theoretically comfortable or happy or feeds the parasites in my gut or whatever. Um, there are other versions of Saturn in Pisces and sacrifice, right? So it's a very important thing that we really don't talk about, or haven't really talked about a lot with Saturn in Pisces, I think. But it's those, and if you have been consciously doing that, just to let you know, you're going to see the results. You're going to see things start to come back to you as with this Saturn Jupiter sextile. Your sacrifice pays off. So for instance, if you've been paying off debt, right, that works for you. Paying off debt works for you. Like you can be close to the finish line with paying off debt. And when you pay off debt, usually you're having to pay more than once, or make two payments or whatever. And that's a sacrifice, because you sacrifice part of your lifestyle because you want to get out from under the anvil of debt. So we have that, right? We have that Saturn Jupiter sextile, and there's a payoff here. So you begin to see it. You begin to see the compound interest on your sacrifice. And if you haven't, it's never too late. We'll have Saturn in Pisces until the end of next year, and there's plenty on the table to sacrifice, right? So there's a lot of sextiles today, and again, there's opportunities with sextiles. We have the Sun now moving into a sextile. What has been in a sextile with Uranus, so it's about 3 degree separation at this point. But again, how do you modify your kind of everyday routines, right? Who you are every day. The Sun Uranus sextile encourages you to break out of those sort of ruts, habits, and habituation. And it's encouraging you to do it in a way where it's easy, right? The good part with Uranus is that when you have the ability to creatively interact with the energy, it is an ally. It's a total ally. When you don't have the ability to creatively act, or you have not made the adaptations with a Uranian transit, then it becomes less of an ally, and the force of Uranus can be much more disruptive, forcing you to make the changes that you could have made when they were much easier, right? Um, so this Sun sextile to Uranus is interesting because I think it gives people an opportunity, not necessarily to abandon their position, um, but to understand what other people's positions are, and to understand that not everybody is cut from the same cloth. And if you can do that, then you can have a more productive and interesting. And it's so hard with relationships too, especially post COVID, because so much of this has been kind of baked in the cake and um, locked in the box. Because when you see somebody, you believe that, okay, I know who this person is. They believe this, 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 and they're cordoned off by their beliefs. And usually what is dominating those beliefs? It's fear. That's what's dominating those beliefs. People have made certain choices in their lives because they're scared shitless. And that's one of the things that we rarely talk about. And we talk about people being sheeps and lemmings, and yeah, there is truth to that. And there is this kind of, again, cumulative effect where, well, so and so got it. Well, I may as well get it too, right? But all of that is dominated by fear. And it's the most unexamined part of the whole crisis that we went through. People were making choices because they were afraid, and you can just fill in that blank. Afraid that they were going to die, afraid that they were going to lose their job, afraid they weren't going to be able to travel, afraid they weren't be able to go to the grocery store, afraid that their friends would stop talking to them, afraid that their family would stop talking to them, right? All of those things were dominated by fear. And then what happens is that as a result of that, a lot of conversations either became very volatile or they stopped. And I'm not saying that you should go out and give your thrice injected friends hugs or anything like that. But there is something to be said for, because we all have biases, right? We all have these preconceived ideas. Well, this person will, they'll never change. They'll never change. And sometimes you have to leave these people. Unfortunately, that was part of the whole deal. And there's a famous scene in the Bible where, Jesus is in Samaria. And the Samarians are very uncouth people. They're rough, uncouth. And Jesus' family basically says, you don't need these people. These people are toxic, Jesus. And Jesus says, I'm with them now. They're my family now. And it's a radical turning in that story. And the metaphor is that you have to leave your family at some point. And it's not that you have to leave your family permanently, but there's some conditioning with your family that you have to leave. And everybody has to go through that, right? And eventually, he matriculates back to his family because that's his family. But he makes a statement, and he's doing that for the Sumerians as much as he's doing it for himself and his family. He's showing the Sumerians that he has a commitment to them that is unshakable and unconditional. So he's going to change their perception. He's going to change the vibration in their hearts. Right. So these things are, written, but you have to leave at times. And at the same time, we have these built-in biases that, well, nobody's ever going to change. Well, the sun sextile to Uranus, and especially in Pisces, is one of those periods where, and again, you have to change something inside of yourself in order to have a different conversation with another person. That's fundamental. But for these last few degrees here, right, there is that possibility that you can flow into a different outcome. Because again, when you deal with a sign like Taurus, which is fixed, or Uranus, which rules Aquarius, which is fixed, you have mutability pouring into a fixed situation. So pay attention to chance encounters. This is really important. This is over the next 4 to 5 days. Chance encounters are essential for understanding the synchronicity of the moment and the possibility of the moment, and beginning to broach some of the things that I'm talking about. I'll give you another example. And again, we look out into the world for representations of the mundane universe in astrology. So last night I was watching Jason Whitlock, and he did a whole show about how the voting trends in Black America are changing. And there was an article in Forbes that reflected that, right? It reflected that, and to be fair, some of the voting data wasn't just applicable to so-called blacks, right? It was also with Latinos and even Asians. and the trend away from the Democratic norm to kind of the new emerging version of whatever republicanism is telling, right? Like the stats are uh, they're vivid, and if you're a Democrat, then you're probably looking at that and saying we're in trouble here. Well, you created the mess, so of course you're going to have people that are leaving their compounds, right? Leaving the comfort of their own prisons, right? So what was interesting about this show is they, of course, it's on BET, so the hostess is black, and then of course the couple that they're interviewing is black, and she asked the guy, the husband, "Who did you vote for in 2012?" And he said Barack Obama. "Who did you vote for?" And she asked the wife, "Who did you vote for?" She said Barack Obama. "Who did you vote for in 2016?" He said Donald Trump. And she asked the woman, "Who did you vote for?" And she said Hillary Clinton. And then she asked the guy, "Who did you vote for in 2020?" And he said Donald Trump. And then she asked the woman, "Who did you vote for?" Joe Biden. "Who are you going to vote for in 2024? He says Donald Trump. And then she asks her who you're going to vote for, and she says Donald Trump. Okay, this is a small sample size, but it is a watershed moment, and it begins to again, look at the sun sextile to Uranus. Right, people are re-examining. This is the big picture now: re-examining and reevaluating what they have invested in. And even the Saturn sextile to Jupiter, like what have I invested in? Is it paying off? And again, the whole two-party system and red and blue, I mean, that's its own mind game, right? I'm just giving you an example of people looking around and saying the compound interest on my vote and these things that I've invested in and believed in for such a long time is not yielding a whole lot. People are looking around, and especially the supporters of the Democratic Party are watching the so-called migrants move into the country and even surpass them when it comes to things like houses and care. Like, if that's not getting your attention, then I'm not sure what's going to get your attention. And again, I'm just bringing this up because that was an event yesterday where this couple essentially demonstrated a sea change. Now, again, you may say voting doesn't help and all these other things. I listen. You would not get much of an argument from me on that front. Okay, I'm just giving you an example of how people are moving in a different direction, and even Pluto in Aquarius is a representation of that as well, right? So just keep your eye right on either people or situations that have shown up and they've been a certain way in the past, and you have an opportunity for whatever reason that the universe has brought you together to change the conversation. And a lot of that, again, has to do with us being able to be flexible with our own bias. And it's good to have boundaries. It's good to be able to, white under. It's good to have boundaries. These are all really important things. Right? But I think the most sophisticated and advanced individuals can have boundaries and borders, and they can be negotiable with awareness. There are certain things we have to stand for. Like yesterday, when I looked at Ron Jeremy's chart, I said, this guy is a scourge on society, right? And I came to that conclusion. Like, that's a principle I stand on. And so we have to have some of those things. Those are unshakable and immutable positions that we've let go of, and part of the reason why we got here. But in personal affairs, the superior person can maintain their position, and their position is correct, and at the same time be fluid and flexible enough so that they can have interchange with another person and be able to stand in that conversation and be a witness, and at the same time um, be able to have a reasonable discourse. which is not always easy to do. And I'm not saying that that's a panacea to heal your past relationships, which have been many of which have been fractured, but you have a much better opportunity to do it along those lines than just standing on ceremony and saying, fuck you, you treated me like shit. You treated my kids like shit. You basically excommunicated us from the family. And a lot of that is true, right? But that's not going to help you. And it's not our position necessarily to heal others per se, right? What is really our what's in our power is to heal our relationship to those others, right? That's in our power. They've got their own healing to do. But if you heal your relationship to those others, it may actually have an effect, and they may pull you aside and say, you know what, I'm really sorry I did that. I'm really sorry I did that. I was just, I felt like I had to. I felt like I had to do it. What else we have here? Pluto in that sextile with Mercury in sextile with Pluto, deep, intense. Again, getting to the point. It was really funny. I talked about how Aries people will just say, get to the point. Tell me the story, right? And I forget who it was on Twitter said the exact same thing. She had to play that over and over again, and she played it for her Aries husband, who laughed, and they had a good laugh. And it's true. Aries wants to get to the point, and we have the ability. Although today I seem to be a bit long-winded. But we do have this ability with the Mercury Pluto sextile to get to the point with power. Make your words count. That's an important element of this transit. Make your words count. You don't have to talk a lot, but when you do, make sure you're saying something. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say what you need to say, because this sextile encourages deep and penetrating conversation, even if it doesn't last an hour, 2 hours, whatever, right? You can have powerful conversation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I mean, economy is something that Aries always praises. The economy of purpose, the economy of speech, the economy of action. So you bundle that up with the sun sextile to Uranus, some of these interactions don't have to be very long. They can be relatively economic. And if you get to the heart of the matter and you do it in a way where, it's sort of thought out and surgical, well, you're not wasting a lot of time, yours or others. I guess on the global front, we're still in cyber attack world, right? With that Mars Uranus square. And I think, again, we're going to see more things go offline. It's just a byproduct of this. We're kind of in that wave now. And this is, a combination of two fixed energies. And it's going to take, I think it's an initiation cycle. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to stop this wave of the random cyber attack or the random outage. We're going to see more and more and more of it as we get closer to the eclipse and even beyond. Okay, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. And thanks for being here. And again, thank you for being patient with your time and my time today. It's more your time than my time. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. Let me get home. All right, let me get home. Let me get my banner up. And I gotta have Chris on soon. Maybe I'll bring him on the Friday show for a little bit, so we can talk about his new goodies. Of course, this is your True Hemp Science Star of the Day moment, where we bring you the Star of the Day. And True Hemp Science is the sponsor of this show and this segment. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you feel like it, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Drinking pecan flavored coffee today. So today's True Hemp Science Star of the Day, where you get free goodies with an investment of $100 or more. All you got to type in is 15MINS, as it says right down there on the banner. And you get a free goodie bag with a bunch of interesting things that you can sample and taste. And the goodie bag alone, trust me, is worth something. If you were to add them all up, all those little vials and gummies and things that Chris slips in the goodie bag, they're worth they're worth your purchase. Not that they're going to add up to your purchase, but it is an incentive enough to go there, right? 15MINS, $150 more, get your free shipping. Check out his new elixirs that he has spent a great deal of time on. And they may be pricey, but you don't need much out of these elixirs. They're powerful, powerful stuff. And always a 30-day money-back guarantee. TrueHempScience.com. That's where you go. Here's your True Hemp Science Star of the Day. It is the Commander, L. Ron Hubbard. And today was one of those days, astrologically, where he kind of stands out as the star of the day. And what's interesting about Hubbard's chart, which I've looked at before, this is not the first time I've seen this chart. And so we have to define what a great person is. You know, some people say, well, Dwight Eisenhower was a great person. In some ways, Dwight Eisenhower was a great person. But Dwight Eisenhower and a lot of the so-called generals of World War II were fighting on the wrong side, theoretically, right? They were fighting with the Soviets and the communists. We were fighting with the communists. We were essentially conscripted to fight with the communists. And if you look at Patton's letters after he basically becomes the governor of Germany, he essentially admits that, right? He saw the German people in a very different light. And then he saw the occupiers, and there was a stark difference. But anyway, why am I going there with commanders? Well, L. Ron Hubbard was a commander, a different kind of commander. But I'm talking about people with great charts. And whatever you think of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard, not everybody can do that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody can be a science fiction novelist and all of a sudden go from being a science fiction novelist to basically starting a religion, writing Dianetics, starting this religion. And he was naval intelligence, as you can see. And it's interesting how we define greatness. Did he have character flaws? Absolutely. He has some horrible character flaws, but he's got a grand trine. And if, you know, grand trines, and I've noticed that grand trines with Jupiter amplifies the grand trine. That's what Jupiter does. So if you have Jupiter in a grand trine, you don't have an ordinary grand trine. So he's got Sun, Mercury, Neptune, and then Jupiter. They're all in water signs. Of course, he works for naval intelligence in the third house. So I've said this before. There are two signs that I think are suited for spycraft: Gemini and Scorpio. Because Gemini can have multiple identities. Scorpio, because the ability to ferret out secrets. And clearly, Hubbard is able to do both. One of the things that happens through the rise of Scientology and the auditing process is he gets state secrets, and there's extortion going on. Like, Hubbard was not a good dude, but if you were to spend time with him, right, you would be under this guy's spell. I'm telling you, with this grand trine. And what's interesting too is he's got that South Node in Scorpio, so he comes into this lifetime with an awareness of occult energy, with an awareness of esoterica. He's been there. He's been a warlock, right? This is kind of Hubbard's stock and trade, and Jupiter makes it even bigger. Like, I think the biggest test of L. Ron Hubbard's life was power, and more than likely he failed it. He certainly failed it when it came to his offspring and his relationships. And if you've ever read his son's book, there's a lot of horror stories around Ron, or Captain Ron, as they called him. But this is the framework of an absolutely tremendous chart. There are stories where people would be out on the boat, like the Sea Org with him. This is back in the early days where he set the Sea Org up as a tax exempt entity. And and he would look at the constellations. He would go through all the stories of the constellations and all the mythology of the constellations, and people be absolutely spellbound by him being able to decode the sky. Right? This is, you could say that he was a con man or a grifter, and I think those things are probably true, right? But he also had kind of a spectacular power to create something that to this day still exists. Like it's not. We don't live in a time where somebody comes along and creates a new religion, and that religion is now. What he started Scientology? What, the 50s? Like the 50s, late 50s. So we're talking close to 70 years. And I don't even know who runs that anymore because David Miscavige is missing in action. People think he's been murdered. So I don't even know who runs Scientology. But again, in his chart, he has a test with power, right? The test with power, which I think for the most part he failed. He has Mars in Aquarius, and it's conjunct Uranus, right? I'm sorry, my bad. Capricorn, conjunct Uranus. And again, that's powerful. Mars in Capricorn, you get a lot of shit done, a lot of work done. And for him, it's unusual work. And he's got an unusual sex life, too. You can see that with that Mars-Uranus conjunction. He hated authority, clearly, because the Uranus square to Saturn, the Mars square to Saturn, which meant that he hated the authority of his own father. And that's worked out in external authority. And with that Venus-Neptune square, not to be trusted, really. His contracts and bonds and relationship, very fluid. Venus and Aries, especially there, right? Kind of at the root of his chart. When he wanted something or something from another person, he wanted it right now. And he would go about doing anything he wanted to or could in order to make that happen. And of course, he's buddies with Jack Parsons, whom he met in the Navy. He was told to watch Parsons because Parsons was a person of interest. Parsons, of course, was part of the OTO and was a student of Aleister Crowley. And Hubbard and Parsons just hit it right off. They were two peas in a pod. And so Hubbard, really, the sort of the backstory is through the Babylon working. That's where Hubbard gets the download for Scientology. And I think some of it also comes from his study of Crowley and the OTO. That's another story. But this guy's got a powerful chart. And you can see that he could cast a very powerful spell over people with that grand trine, that grand water trine. And he has the midheaven in Libra. So, he comes across as being kind of Venusian, right, with the world. And very even-keeled and even-tempered, but that's not really who he was. At times, this guy was a real tempest. And especially with that Mars-Uranus conjunction squaring Saturn. If he had to deal with any kind of frustration, he would be the equivalent of like a Sherman tank if he needed to eliminate somebody or something that got in his way with those squares. And he's got that true node in Taurus, so I'm sure Ron enjoyed the good life and all of the copious pleasures that went along with power and money and resources. And as he got older, his Earth suit became larger and larger and larger, right? And you could tell that he didn't spare himself a lot of. He wasn't going through no Saturn and Pisces sacrificial lifetime experience. Ron enjoyed pleasure. True node, Taurus, fifth house. All right, I got to run. I got to jump over to 15 minutes. It's happening. I literally have to just go right from here to there. I can spend more time on and by the way, Chiron and Pisces, he's a heretic. He had to reinvent religion. And oh boy, did he ever. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, the infamous L. Ron Hubbard. I will be back tomorrow. And I will be back at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Again, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to hit the like. Come on over and join us over on 15 Minutes, where we can continue the conversation. And I just have to get back. To end the show. Where is it? Right there. Okay, everybody. Oh, the screen went blank. Wonder why. Let me in the banner. All right. For whatever reason, I'm blank. Bye for now.